What's the meta with you? There has been a bunch of great discussion in the community around balance and speculation about potential changes to units in the game. While there will always be these kinds of questions and concerns, our goal is to be as transparent as possible on when and why we make these changes. To that end, we want to provide some broader understanding on when and why we intervene to change characters that are significantly not performing as expected. Of course, changing a character after launch is something we want to avoid at all costs and is always the last resort, but sometimes becomes necessary. To get everyone on the same page, let's begin with how all the different types of units fit together and lay out the current hierarchy of power. To be clear, this certainly does not hold universally true for all units, but is a rough rubric we can use to discuss this topic in more detail. There are many exceptions to the rules, in the name of fun and interesting gameplay, that exist, but overall this is a good snapshot of how we approach power. Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes Power Tiers. Marquee and Galactic Chase characters, example Second Sister Iden Versio. Journey Guide Conquest units. Jedi Knight Revan, Commander Luke Skywalker, Galactic Legends, SLKR, Rey, Galactic Legends with Conquest counterpart, Jedi Master Kenobi with Cat. So what, those are the rankings, like weakest to strongest? This list assumes squad compositions are highly synergetic and have comparable mods. This may not always be the case in practice, and if so, is not a balance issue. For example, a Galactic Legend with weak mods and in a non-ideal squad may potentially be challenged by a well-modded and highly synergetic squad from the lower tiers. Yep. Wait! Why is there no mention of Omicron units in the above list? Oh, I don't know, maybe because Omicrons A, don't actually do anything to power ratings, and B, it's only active in specific areas. It's not a non-stop all the time thing. But what do they say? Omicrons boost the power of a unit. Adding an Omicron will move a unit up around a tier on the scale above, which means their final power varies based on the type of character. So where do they sit on the power scale? What are they talking about? It doesn't boost the power at all. It stays the same. If you were at 20,000 power, you put the Omicron on, they're still at 20,000. And the other thing that happens is if they had a Zeta and the Omicron goes over that, the Zeta goes away until you put the Omicron on. Then it comes back. I mean, it doesn't go away per se, like, functionally, but, like, you know, the little icon on the badge, that goes away. So what are they talking about here? Oh, that's weird. Anyways, so where do they sit on the power scale? Marquee units with Omicrons get lifted up to somewhere between the level of Journey Guide or Conquest unit, while a character like Starkiller, Journey Guide, or Boba Fett, Sign of Django, Conquest can rival a Galactic Legend in their specific mode with the right squad. It is important to note that when we talk about counters to a squad, there are a ton of elements that need to be considered. The intent is that a counter to a squad should be roughly comparable in effort to unlock, but there are a ton of factors as to what is comparable. When we investigate a balance issue, team composition, mods, abilities, ultimates, gear, relic levels, and the consistency of the power of the counter all play a role in the final decision. We examine a number of different squad variations and we review the data on how all players mod these squads in order to get the best snapshot of the current balance players are experiencing. But the most effective squads with close to equal modding have the most weight in our decisions. On top of that, the win rate and reliability of these matchups are also important factors. A consistent counter is more likely to see changes than one is only sometimes possible. Okay. We also consider how to address those issues while supporting a healthy amount of theory crafting. It is important to strike a balance between encouraging creative uses for units and keeping the value of progressing to higher units intact. And there are a ton of other factors that modify this balance. Omicron versus not Omicron, stronger mods versus weaker mods, challenging a squad's less than ideal comp, does this squad encourage under-gearing or leveling abilities, and more. Also, a quick note about defense penetration. The changes last year to ignoring defense focused on units that completely bypass defense. Ignoring defense in its entirety was the core of the issue, and those changes allow us to explore the design space of defense as a meaningful value. While it is highly unlikely we will introduce a new character that ignores all defense, future characters may have defense penetration. We made these changes to allow for some counterplay between plus X% defense penetration and plus Y% defense, and so we can use these stats when designing new units. To reiterate, not every unit is going to fall nicely into these constraints, and we may release units that push the limits of these boundaries in the name of interesting gameplay, but I hope this provides some context for where future characters will land and where we may intervene for balance. As always, the team is committed to announcing any changes to units as early as possible and sharing the context for why the changes are necessary whenever we can. Omicron's reworked game modes and conquest units have shifted the meta and the focus of many rosters, but our goals continue to be a long, healthy life to the game, transparency around upcoming changes, and most important of all, fun and diverse experience when playing with your collection of Star Wars ships and characters.